everyone, and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis for 28th April 2022. So, today we will be discussing an editorial from the Indian Express, which has been titled as Why Atmanirbhar Internet. So, as we know, Atmanirbhar means of being self reliant, and India has always now recently been pitching for being self reliant India. In this regard, it is very important that we also have the internet of our own and we are not dependent upon the big techs. So, what is this article in detail about, and what are the pros and cons of this will be discussed in detail once we are discussing this. The second one is about the news update, and in news update, we'll be covering about the important sports news, important awards, appointments, etc. And thirdly, we have the legal news in which we'll be covering up the latest and the most important case laws for the day. With this, let's get started with a discussion for why Atmanirbhar Bharat Internet or Atmanirbhar Internet. So the government recently has introduced new IT, that is information and technology rules, to create an Atmanirbhar Internet. So the new rules aim to strike a balance between the commercial interests of the social media platforms as well as the rights of the citizens in the digital sphere. Now, as we know that when we talk about the digital sphere, there are two most important components. First is the service provider. Basically, that is the commercial company that provides us with the internet services. And secondly, are the consumers of the internet, as you and I, all that are using the internet. So that definitely for the right kind of approach, the right balance has to be drawn between the consumers as well as the producers as or the service providers. And that is why it's important that the interest of these commercial people or the commercial companies is also not hampered, and at the same time the rights of the citizens, like we have various kinds of rights, our right to privacy, a right to information, right to internet, so these rights should also not be hampered. So the presence of a nodal officer will further help in resolving issues, and the case of bully by further drives home the point. So basically these new IT rules provide for having a nodal officer who shall take care of various kinds of these requirements at the particular level. And in this article, it has also been mentioned that if at all we'll have the nodal officer, so any such cases like the bully by app case will be deterred in the very first instance. Now, if you remember, the bully by app case was where the Muslim women and journalists were virtually auctioned on this particular app. Please remember that they were not really, in the real life, they were not auctioned, but definitely it was defamatory and it caused a lot of disturbance in the society, wherein this bully by app was used to virtually auction Muslim women over the internet. Now, the Indian judiciary has always been very much vocal about the lazy approach of the social media platforms. A very good example of this was that earlier, it was to forward a message on WhatsApp was super duper easy, and a single message could be sent to a lot of groups all at once. But you must have noticed that now there has been a restriction wherein if you have to send a message, so only you can send it to 5 groups at a time. And in the newest or the latest version of the WhatsApp, where there is a big there is a big group, so only one group can be sent with one message at a time. So these kinds of social media platforms, they should actually take an initiative to make sure that their platform is not being used to put up any kind of turmoil in the society or to harm any section of the society. So the Delhi High Court rebuked Twitter as well for not taking actions against an account that was making fun of the Hindu deities. Atmanirbhar Bharat has the potential to succeed and take place amidst the UPI and the RuPay law, two instruments that were initially criticized, but they have actually substantially taken over the monopoly of Visa and MasterCard. So that is why, if at all we want that we should have a complete inclusion, or the digital inclusion and the digital divide that we are fighting against for in the country, that can definitely be tackled with, if at all we have the Atmanirbhar Internet, that is internet services that are provided by the domestic service providers, and we are not dependent on huge big giants or foreign companies to come into India and provide us with the internet. So further, it also encourages alternate growth of ecosystems, making sure that we are not at the mercy of the tech giants, for example, Google, etc. So the action is also in wake of the US cracking down at the hegemony of big tech, something that has been supported by people across political ranks and party affiliations. So obviously monopoly in any kind of market trade is not encouraged. And similarly, US also has tried to crack down the hegemony or the monopoly of the big tech companies. Further, social media intermediaries shall not be imposed with criminal liability unless they fail to do proper compliance based on due diligence. So they have been given immunity from the same under the Indian law. That is why definitely their interests are being protected, but at the same time, the rules would make sure that these big companies or these internet service providers are also maintaining the required level of decorum at the social media. Now let's see what do we have for news updates today. So Jammu and Kashmir has its new hydroelectric project that has been approved at now. So if at all there is a question in our prelims exam that a Kwar hydroelectric project is associated with which of the following, so please remember that it is built on the Chenab River. It is being built, it will be built on the Chenab River, and it will be situated in Jammu and Kashmir. So the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs in the meeting chaired by Prime Minister approved an investment of rupees 4,526 crore for the 540 megawatt Kwar hydroelectric project, which will be constructed on Chenab in the Kishtwar district of Jammu and Kashmir. Second, Russia stops gas supply to two NATO nations. So by NATO here we mean the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Please remember that Russia is definitely not a member of NATO because NATO is significantly led by United States, and we all understand that Russia and United States do not share friendly relations at the global forefront. So Russia has cut off natural gas to two NATO members, Poland and Bulgaria, and Russia has threatened to do the same to other countries also as a bid to punish them and divide the West over its support for Ukraine. Now the Russia-Ukraine tussle is something that we all know about, and definitely we know that a lot of NATO members that are also, the members of the European, the Europe, they have been coming up in support of Ukraine and have been criticizing Russia for its acts. But Russia also is adamant that it will teach them all a lesson, and it has maybe started doing that by firstly starting with Poland and Bulgaria, and has cut off the natural gas supplies to these two nations. Now, the move marked a dramatic escalation in the economic war of sanctions and counter-sanctions. Please consider that when we talk about sanctions and counter-sanctions in the global or the international terminology, by sanctions we mean usually the punishments that are in terms of money, that is monetary kind of penalties. Thirdly, SEBI eases transmission process rule. So with an aim to simplify the procedure for transmission of securities, SEBI has revised the existing threshold limit for simplified documents to rupees 5 lakh from 2 lakh currently for securities held in physical mode per listed issuer. Fourthly, Mariya created new national record in weightlifting. So Mariya sets a new national record in 87 kg women weightlifting competition. And this was the highlight of the day of the day 5 of the Khelo India University Games in Bengaluru. Let's see what do we have for our legal news or the latest case laws for the day. Supreme Court posts pleas challenging Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code, criminalizing sedition for final hearing on May 5th. So the bench comprising Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. Ramana, Justice Suryakant and Justice Hema Kohli were considering two writs filed by Army veteran Major General S.G. Bombatkare and the editors of India, that guild, that challenged the constitutional validity of sedition charges under Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. This was done in the case of S.G. Bombatkare versus Union of India, Editors Guild of India and another versus Union of India and others. So this was all for the day. We hope you liked the session. If you did, please you will like the session and may also subscribe to our channel. Also, if you wish to download the PDF of today's slides, you can join our Telegram channel. You can find the link in the description box below, or you can scan the QR code that you can see on your screens right now. Thank you so much.